Before you shoot a film, you need to ask yourself, what makes a cinematic shot? You have things like gear, cameras, lenses. Then you have things like lighting, which is shaping light, shadows, and even color in a scene. Then of course you have things like composition, which we've talked about in an earlier episode. But in order to compose a cinematic shot, you have to pay close attention to the angle of your camera. And by mastering and understanding all the different camera angles, this could be an extremely useful storytelling tool to bring your audience into your film. So today we're going to break down every single camera angle, what they mean, and how you can use them to enhance the storytelling of your film. Probably one of the most common used angles in Hollywood is an eye level shot. Eye level shots are exactly what they sound like. This is where you keep the camera at eye level with your character, and this is a great way to engage in the conversation or the movement of your characters, or even a great way to showcase the world through your character's lens. Many films will use this camera angle to immerse their audience into the reality of the film. In fact, it's almost a neutral angle that makes you feel like you're standing right there with your character. But if we start to take that camera angle and move it down a little bit while we tilt it up, now we have something that's called a low angle shot. And low angle shots are great for showcasing dominance or power of another character. A lot of films will use this low angle shot to showcase a powerful moment from a protagonist or even an antagonist. And a low angle shot doesn't have to only showcase subjects. They also could be used to idolize objects in a scene. Now, if you take the camera and you put it above your subject and you tilt it down, now you have something that's called a high angle shot. And while the low angle shot could be used to establish dominance and power for a particular character in the scene, the high angle shot is the exact opposite. Typically, it's used in Hollywood to showcase a sense of vulnerability or a weak, powerless character that's inferior to another character in the frame. Taking a look at this shot from Handmaid's Tale, they use a lot of low angle shots to showcase power dynamic between her being a servant and a slave to her master. If your character is feeling defeated or hopeless in a scene, the high angle shot could be a great way to subliminally showcase this visually to your audience. And if you think about this, it makes a lot of sense because psychologically we're looking down at them and they start to feel inferior, not only to the surrounding world around them, but also to the audience, because again, we are literally looking down at them. And of course, high angle shots are used time and time again in things like drone or establishing shots to showcase the vastness of whatever world that your characters are moving through. So before you determine the height or the tilt of your camera, start to determine what your scene is calling for. How are your characters supposed to feel in that scene, and how do you want the audience to feel about them in that particular scene? My number one goal of this video is to make you guys think about what the camera angle actually means as you are looking through your script and as you're going through your scenes. Now, before we move on to the next angle, I want to take a second and talk to you guys about today's sponsor, Retouch For Me, which is an incredible AI tool that you guys can use to retouch your photos and quickly take away things like blemishes, pimples, and any other imperfections with a click of a button. And what's insane is that they have these really awesome video plugins as well. They have a retouch tool for video, so you can quickly take away blemishes and any other imperfections to the skin tones. They have a ton of LUTs that you could go through and apply to your videos. But probably my favorite feature is the color match plugin, which is absolutely insane. If you go up to your effects and drag the color match effect on your video and choose a reference image, you can easily match a color grade to any film. So for this particular scene, I'm going to color match it to this shot from Fight Club, and boom, with a click of a button, you literally just copied the color grade of this film to your shot. Now, of course, you might have to adjust some parameters of the grade, and I don't think that you could just press a button and walk away from it, but you can get a starting point and you can start to mold and shape this to how you want it and kind of get something a lot quicker rather than if you were to just sit here and try to color grade it on your own. And if you guys want to use any of the Retouch For Me products, I'll leave a discount code down below. Let's get back to the video. Now, another angle that's used time and time again in Hollywood is something that's called an over-the-shoulder shot, or commonly known as OTS shot. The OTS shot is great for showcasing conversations between two characters. And the reason why is because it shows you the perspective of each character while kind of removing you from the scene. And because you have a shoulder in the foreground, your character in the middle ground, and then you have a deep depth of field in the background, this is something that already sets the stage for a cinematic shot because you have depth in layers. Now, we have something called the hip level shot. This is where you take your camera, you push it down a little bit from that shoulder shot down to the hip. This was a big shot used a lot in the old spaghetti westerns because cowboys always had a gun at their hip. You know, they always had that holster holding the gun right there. So a lot of the times you would want to showcase that gun and you would want to show somebody in the distance or even just showcase them from the hip up to be able to, let you know that they have a gun, they're a cowboy, and they're ready to use it. What's great about this shot is it's able to show a different perspective of multiple characters in a scene like the old cowboy movie days. showing the gun in the holster while somebody's in the background. Now, one of my favorite angles to use is something called a ground level shot. And I'm a huge fan of this shot because being able to take the camera and just putting it on the ground, something as simple as that, gives you an entirely different perspective, and it makes the world around you feel a lot bigger than it is. A lot like the low angle shot, when you put something down and you tilt it up, it makes a character feel powerful. But when you put something on the ground and you kind of tilt it up just a little bit, well, now the whole world around you seems bigger. It just gives a totally different perspective than we're used to seeing. One of my favorite shots in cinema history was this shot from Dune. Our main character in the distance, but the ground is in the foreground. The camera is pretty much on the ground, and because they're using such a long lens and the background is compressed, you have a lot of depth and interesting look to that shot. Now, the last angle that we're going to talk about is something called the Dutch angle. And the Dutch angle is when you tilt the camera off its axis, giving it a very unbalanced and abnormal look to your scene. And this is such a great angle to be able to showcase a dark, uneasy, kind of dramatic, and maybe even twisted moment in your scene. You'll see a lot of films use this to capture a sinister character or a villain in their story, or even resemble some sort of intoxication from a character in a film. I actually use this camera angle a lot in one of these UFC promos that I shot. I just love the vibe that it gave because it gave this dark, kind of twisted, weird kind of feeling to it. I just thought stylistically it was perfect for what we were going for. You guys got to think that the camera angle that you choose to use for your scenes is extremely important because it really starts to set the stage for how they should feel about a particular scene or a character, or really anything in your film. And like I say time and time again, script is king, and the first step to any good story is understanding what the goal is of the script, who the characters are, and how every angle could be used to actually deliver an emotion that you intend for your film. And if you guys want to learn more about cinematography and just filmmaking in general, me and my team are putting together a course. I'll drop a link down below so you guys can sign up for that and be notified as soon as we drop the course. Like always, I want to say thank you guys so much for stopping in and hanging out. My name is Zarfati. I'll see you guys next week.